Blood isn't everything, Linda whispered as the lawyer closed the will. A cold spring wind swept across the lawn outside the law office in downtown Denver, Colorado. Inside the oak-paneled room, the air felt heavy, as though everyone held their breath. Stacks of documents lay atop a polished mahogany table. The last will of Charles Reed, founder of Timberline Lumber Works, was being opened. Logan Reed sat across from his stepmother and half-brother, his expression cool and collected. It had been 3 months since his father's passing. Logan Reed, 45, dressed in a sharp gray suit that hinted at exhaustion after decades spent in the lumber yard. He had led the company from his early 20s. Linda Carter, his stepmother, seated beside her son, Tyler Carter, whose face radiated triumph. Tyler, 34, toyed with his new smartwatch, unmoved by Logan's gaze. Rachel, Logan's sister, gripped the armrest as Tyler was named sole heir, her eyes misty but determined. The blow landed like a blade in Logan's chest. Ownership of Timberline, all real estate, machinery, and the brand went entirely to Tyler, who'd never even handled lumber, let alone run the business. Not a single line in the will acknowledged Logan's decades of work. He remained silent, frozen as a stone. When the lawyer snapped the file shut, Logan rose slowly, nodding, accepting what was delivered. He walked out, his footsteps echoing down the plush corridor. Rachel followed, voice trembling. "Logan, you can't just let this go." He offered a soft smile and rested his hand on her shoulder. "I'm fine." That was all he said. On the drive home to Spokane, near the mill where he had spent his life, Logan didn't turn on the radio or make a call. He sat in silence, his mind replaying memories, stacking lumber with his father late into the night, personally negotiating with clients, steering the company away from bankruptcy. Then came the flashback. Recent months where his signing authority was revoked piece by piece, assets quietly reassigned. The betrayal snapped into sharp focus. Back home in his modest Spokane house, Logan didn't flip on any lights. He went straight to his study and opened the third drawer. Inside lay a file labeled Redwood Timber Solutions. 6 years ago, during a moment of uncertainty, he'd quietly registered the company but never activated it. Tonight, that changed. He fired up his laptop, its blue glow reflected in his calm eyes. He opened email drafts and supplier contact lists. He began typing. Strategic Relationship Map, Logan Reed. No one could take what he'd built with sweat and honor, and if they thought they'd sidelined him, they hadn't seen him truly start. My MBA little brother can't tell white oak from pine, yet he's now sitting in the CEO's chair. 3 weeks had passed since the reading of the will. On the surface, Timberline Lumber Works, headquartered just outside Denver, still ran like clockwork, trucks coming and going, machines humming. But internally, the flow of power was shifting. Meetings were being rescheduled without notice. Veteran staff were excluded from internal communications. Logan's former office now sat in silence, while Charles's old corner, once a sacred space, had been converted by Tyler into a sleek workspace, complete with a coffee machine and a glass desk. Donald Price, head of lumber supply, the man who once helped Timberline survive the shortage 5 years ago. Jimmy Holbrook, veteran warehouse manager, trusted by both employees and clients. Tom Bradley, regional bank representative who helped Logan finance the expansion to the North Yard. These 3 had been anchors in Timberline's ecosystem, but Tyler now saw them as obstacles to reform. Now, CEO Tyler Carter began enacting the strategic reforms fed to him by Linda. Slashing costs by renegotiating all contracts, including those with longtime partners. Raising prices under the guise of market recalibration. Scrapping the inventory system personally trained and overseen by Jimmy. Logan, though stripped of all titles, remained the first call partners made when things went wrong. Donald called him late at night. "Logan, Tyler just sent over a new contract with a 12% markup. No explanation. I refused, and he threatened to replace me." Jimmy met Logan in a quiet cafe in Spokane. "They're tearing out the old inventory system, cutting staff. I'm not against change, but this isn't pruning. It's uprooting." Logan took no action, yet. He was drawing a map, not of retaliation, of preparation. One evening, Rachel handed him a set of business registration documents she'd retrieved from the Washington State office. Carter Timber Distribution. Registered under Tyler Carter. Legal sponsor, Linda Carter. Registration date, 8 months ago, while their father was still alive. Logan read every line like peeling away the final layer of a mask. What he felt wasn't anger. It was confirmation. Everything he'd suspected, the revocation of signing authority, the silent asset transfers, was true. This wasn't chaos. It was a coup. Logan didn't confront Tyler. He didn't storm the office. Instead, he called Donald, Jimmy, and loyal clients like Cascade Mill and Harrison Lumber. "I'm seriously considering starting something new. Not Timberline, but something real, where promises are kept and people come before profit. If I do it, would you join?" None hesitated. Donald's answer was simple. "You don't need a contract with me, Logan. You just need to call." That night, in his garage, Logan stood before a whiteboard. He wrote names in red marker, clients, suppliers, key employees. He marked who had reached out, who was still neutral, who to approach soon. At the top of the board, he scrawled a single line. "Not every signature carries trust, but every trust can rewrite history." They thought they'd taken the company from me, but they forgot. Trust isn't a transferable asset. Monday, 6 a.m. Spokane lay under a soft morning fog. Logan zipped up his leather jacket and opened the garage door. The yellow light inside had been burning all night. A whiteboard was filled with red, black, and blue markers. His laptop hummed with heat from the dozens of emails sent out over the weekend. Today, he would officially begin again. Elena Brooks, a logistics accountant who was fired by Tyler for not fitting the new company culture. Cody Tran, a Vietnamese-American industrial engineer with over 10 years in the lumber industry, recently left his former company over a value clash. Derek Walsh, owner of a small warehouse in Spokane, struggling to stay afloat due to lack of clients. 3 different people, 3 different stories, but each a perfect puzzle piece in Logan's quiet comeback. Logan wasn't just starting a new company, he was rebuilding an entire ecosystem. To do that, he needed a functional space for operations, ethical, loyal manpower. To reactivate his dormant company, Redwood Timber Solutions. But Tyler and Linda were watching closely. Logan couldn't let them know he was gathering a team, at least not until it was too late. He reached out to Derek Walsh, who had a 20,000 square foot warehouse near the Spokane rail terminal. "I'm not here to pay 3 months up front. I'm looking for someone who understands second chances." Derek was silent for a moment, then nodded. Logan worked with Elena to review financial systems, secure commercial insurance, and set up a new banking account, not with their old bank. He chose a local credit union where real people still answered the phone. Cody, the quiet engineer, arrived that afternoon. "You don't need me to redesign your warehouse layout. You need me to rebuild your supply chain." And he began, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp with long-term vision. By Wednesday, Logan was sitting in the near-empty warehouse with Jimmy Holbrook under the newly installed LED lights. "Jimmy, if I launch officially next month, can you lead operations?" Jimmy didn't answer immediately. He just asked, "Are you bringing your promises with you?" Logan nodded. Jimmy reached out his hand. "Then I'm in." That handshake, No contracts, no legal advisors, marked the quiet return of Redwood Timber Solutions to the game. Logan sent a short, respectful email to trusted partners. No mention of Timberline. No bitterness. Dear partner, I will no longer be working with Timberline. However, if you'd like to continue receiving the service and commitment I've upheld for the last 20 years, you may contact me at my new address. His phone rang non-stop for the next 3 days. By the weekend, Logan walked through the warehouse, now filled with forklifts, tablets, and 2 teams of interns. Elena was training staff on inventory systems. Cody was configuring transport management software. On the main office door, a new wooden sign had just been installed. Redwood Timber Solutions, where trust delivers. Logan stood in silence, fingers gently tracing the wood grain. It wasn't his father's name. It wasn't an inherited crest. This company bore his own name, and no one could ever take that away again. They inherited the payroll, the warehouse, and the signboard. I took the trust. Monday, the start of a new month. The Timberline office had been redesigned by Tyler with imported wooden desks, ergonomic chairs, and a new slogan: Efficiency drives growth. But the things that didn't show up on KPI charts, trust, passion, and tradition, had begun to vanish quietly day by day. Meanwhile, at the new warehouse in Spokane, Redwood Timber Solutions was operating silently. Barcode scanners, optimized delivery routes, CRM systems, all running smoothly and efficiently. Harrison Mills, a longtime client of Timberline, known for luxury wood housing developments in Montana. Evergreen Supply Company, exclusive supplier of interior accessories, previously negotiated by Logan. Cascade Mill, the main kiln-dried lumber supplier, saved by Logan during a transportation crisis in 2018. Each of them had once said clearly, "We work with Logan, not with just any company." Tyler, brimming with confidence in his new position, called Harrison Mills and other major clients, announcing he would restructure pricing and optimize the business model, and requested earlier payments. Harrison hung up mid-call and dialed Logan. "That kid is talking to me like I'm an investor, not a partner. I don't appreciate being taught how to buy." At the same time, Evergreen Supply was being pushed by Tyler to re-sign distributor agreements under completely new terms, cutting out all the perks Logan had once secured. They hesitated, then emailed Logan. "We're no longer sure Timberline is trustworthy. Where are you now?" Logan didn't rush to pull clients over. Instead, he became a contractor, fulfilling Timberline's orders during a transition phase. This reassured Tyler. Revenue was still coming in, and customers weren't bolting right away. But in reality, each order was fully executed by Logan, using his people and his systems. Invoices bore the name Redwood Timber Solutions, faintly as the logistics operator, but clients knew very well who was really behind the operations. Friday, 4 p.m. Logan received a call from Donald at Cascade Mill. Tyler, just called and offered a lower rate, demanding a 10% discount if we want to keep the deal. What does he think this is, an Amazon bid war? Donald asked directly. If you go independent, when do you need the first shipment? Logan didn't reply right away. He sent over a distribution schematic and contract terms. Donald responded in 10 minutes. I'm in. We ship next week. Within 2 weeks, 70% of Timberline's former clients began placing orders directly with Redwood. They called Tyler to terminate contracts, without explanation. Harrison offered just one line when asked, I work with people who keep their word, not their chair. At Timberline, Tyler noticed strange trends, declining orders, silent partners, and calls from the bank asking about sudden revenue shifts. Late afternoon, Logan stood on the second floor of the new warehouse, looking out through the glass window over the shipping yard. Trucks with temporary Redwood logos were rolling out smoothly. Jimmy walked in with a progress sheet in hand. "We fulfilled 40% of old client orders just this week." Logan nodded. "We don't need to take back the old company. We just need to build what it was meant to become." In the distance, the Timberline sign still glowed, but inside, the office was as cold as granite. Logan closed his eyes for a moment. The real war hadn't started, but trust had already picked its side. When the cash flow stops, every mask starts to fall. Mid-month, at the Timberline office in Denver, Tyler sat in front of the company's financial dashboard. Revenue graphs were plunging. Orders were thinning out. The CRM flagged multiple accounts as no longer in contact. The smug look on his face had faded, replaced by constant irritation. Meanwhile, across the state in Spokane, Logan was in a meeting with Elena and Cody. Projected on the board was a 6-month financial plan, entirely based on former clients who had come looking for him. Sylvia Kemp, a retired corporate lawyer who once worked with Logan's father. Though semi-retired, she kept an eye on the situation. Lance Gregory, a small investment fund representative who once showed interest in buying Timberline shares, now reaching out directly to Logan. Brian Cates, a bank finance officer who discovered Tyler was taking short-term rollover loans to pay employee salaries. Tyler couldn't understand why revenues were still being recorded, but no cash was coming in. What he didn't know was that most customers were still placing orders, only now paying Redwood under the guise of a logistics partner. To hide the financial mess from the bank and board members, Tyler began withdrawing from the maintenance fund, took out unreported short-term loans, and slashed operating costs. In response, Logan officially submitted notice to end his role as Timberline's intermediary. Logan's withdrawal of all operational support triggered an abrupt breakdown in Timberline's delivery capability. Suppliers stopped providing rush shipments. Jimmy and the veteran crew refused to return to work. Clients began openly declining contract renewals. Harrison Mills posted on LinkedIn, "Relationships are assets. Timberline never understood that." Tyler tried calling everyone. No one answered. On his desk were debt collection letters from the bank and emails demanding internal audits from investment partners. One morning, Logan received an email from Sylvia Kemp, the lawyer who once drafted Timberline's shareholder agreements. "Logan, I've reviewed their financial reports. They're using secured credit lines tied to your father's assets to stay afloat. That crosses the line." Sylvia offered her help, not for profit, but out of respect for Logan's father and Logan's integrity throughout this entire ordeal. At the same time, Lance Gregory, the investment rep, called Logan, "If you're looking to expand, we're ready to invest. Not because of Redwood, but because of how you treat your clients." Logan declined immediate funding. Instead, he invited Lance to tour Redwood's operation, from warehouse to systems. He simply said, "I'm not looking for someone to rescue me. I'm looking for someone who believes in what I'm building." After the visit, Lance submitted an internal memo to his fund. Redwood doesn't need saving. They're already 2 years ahead of the game. And Logan Reed is the only person in this industry who keeps his word in a crisis. That Friday, the bank officially sent Timberline a notice demanding a cash flow assurance statement within 10 days. Otherwise, all pledged assets would be reassessed for debt recovery. While Tyler sat alone in an empty conference room, head in hands, Logan and Cody were finalizing plans to open a new distribution station in southern Oregon, a market starved for supply. People don't fall from one strong blow. They fall when they no longer know who to trust. And in this moment, everyone who once trusted Logan was still standing by his side. Timberline may still have the name, but I kept its soul. Tuesday, 9 a.m. Inside the Denver Regional Bank's conference room, Tyler sat alone with his hands clenched, across from 3 credit officers and a bank lawyer. Timberline's finances had officially spiraled into a liquidity crisis. Revenue wasn't coming in, suppliers refused to deliver, and customers had turned elsewhere. Meanwhile, in Spokane, at Redwood's warehouse, A staff training session was underway with over 20 people, all formerly from Timberline. They sat around Logan like a team reuniting with their trusted coach. Natalie Burns, a construction industry journalist writing an exposé titled The Quiet Rise of Redwood. Jerome Haskins, owner of a furniture distribution chain in Oregon, who sought Logan out for a long-term contract after Timberline canceled his order last minute. Bryce Taylor, Timberline's last remaining accountant, secretly sent Rachel an internal report revealing unpaid debts. Timberline's situation was deteriorating fast. Not only were clients and suppliers lost, they were now facing penalties for missed deliveries. Bryce messaged Rachel, Logan's sister, "They're signing incorrect documents to stall the bank. You should know." At the same time, articles about Redwood were spreading across industry forums, highlighting restoring trust in supply chains and human-centered business models in a profit-driven era. Logan was invited to speak at the annual U.S. Lumber Industry Conference as a guest speaker on post-crisis business rebuilding. He took the stage in rolled-up sleeves, speaking calmly. "I used to think I worked for a company, but turns out I worked for people, and when I brought them with me, the old company had nothing left but a business license." His 12-minute speech was quoted thousands of times in just 3 days. On the 18th of that month, the bank officially reclaimed Timberline's assets, demanding liquidation of equipment and headquarters unless a new investor stepped in within 15 days. Tyler called Logan at 10 p.m. for the first time in months. His voice was tired, no longer arrogant. "Logan, I know you won, but Timberline still carries your father's name. Could you save it?" Logan paused for a few seconds, then replied, "I didn't win. You chose to throw away the most valuable part of that company. And now, that name means nothing." Logan declined to take over Timberline, but agreed to help relocate honest employees uninvolved in wrongdoing. He appointed Rachel to coordinate with the bank and stakeholders, helping some workers transition to Redwood under transparent hiring standards. Meanwhile, Jerome Haskins signed a 3-year deal with Redwood, covering his entire Oregon distribution network, marking Redwood's official expansion beyond Washington state. Friday afternoon, Logan stood inside the warehouse, watching QR-coded shipments being loaded onto trucks. Cody walked over with a roadmap of the expanded delivery network. "We'll be in 4 states by next quarter." Logan nodded, eyes focused ahead. "Good. No one will mistake Redwood for a side project anymore. This is the real future." In the distance, the Timberline sign was being removed from its old building, wind rustling through broken pallets. But in the hearts of those who once believed in Logan, another name had already been carved, not painted, not lit by LEDs, but etched in trust. Not everyone who rebuilds from the ruins dreams big, but sometimes they're the ones invited to sit at the table that reshapes the entire industry. One late autumn morning, Logan walked into the Marriott lobby in Boise, Idaho. He had been invited to a closed-door meeting where major West Coast investment funds were seeking founders who upheld ethics while pursuing growth. Back in Spokane, Elena and Cody were onboarding 12 new hires. Redwood had just launched its first satellite warehouse in Oregon. Operations remained stable, and client numbers continued to grow. Dean Holloway, a representative from North Scale Capital, known for investing in 5 publicly traded lumber companies. Carmen Liu, an international supply chain strategist invited by the fund to assess Redwood's scalability. Alex Jameson, a young entrepreneur whose logistics startup had failed. He came to learn, but Logan noticed something rare in him: real grit. North Scale proposed a valuation of $45 million for Redwood, with conditions. Open 3 new branches on the East Coast. Add board members from the fund. Adjust some of Redwood's core principles, e.g., standardize contracts, reduce personal involvement in client relationships. Elena and Cody were visibly concerned. We didn't succeed because of a financial model. We succeeded because of how you treat people. They came for Logan, not Redwood. Logan agreed to listen. Carmen presented a data-driven replication model, predicting 300% growth in 24 months with standardized operations. Dean added, "You've proven you don't need us to survive, but if you want Redwood to influence the entire industry, you'll need partners." Then Alex, the youngest in the room, spoke up. "I once ran a company like Redwood. I scaled too fast and lost everything that made it human. Don't let that happen to you." That night, Logan sat alone in his hotel room, staring out at Boise's city lights. On the table were two documents, one from Northscale, an $8 million investment proposal. The other, a 5-year vision plan Logan had written before everything at Timberline fell apart. He held each one briefly, then set them down. No one could decide for him anymore, and no one else would bear the consequences if he chose wrong. The next morning, in the meeting room with Dean and Carmen, Logan gave his answer. "I'm not accepting the money, but I invite you to Spokane. Come see why our clients call Redwood the company that keeps its word. If, after that, you still want to be part of this, we'll talk. But Redwood won't compromise its soul. It can only grow if it stays true to itself." Dean was surprised, but nodded. Carmen smiled and made a note. Alex, though not formally part of the deal, clenched the side of his chair as if witnessing something deeply right. On the flight back to Spokane, Logan reflected on everything he had endured. He no longer feared failure. He'd tasted that enough. What he feared was succeeding by becoming everything he once walked away from. At the airport, Rachel met him with a folder. 3 small companies want to merge into Redwood. They're not asking for control, they just want to work with you. Logan smiled. Not everyone dreams big, but sometimes dreaming right is stronger than dreaming big. I don't need them to remember my name. I just need them to remember there was a place that always kept its word. 1 year after Timberline declared bankruptcy, their former building now hangs a sign, "For lease, warehouse space available." Redwood Timber Solutions, on the other hand, has expanded to 5 states, 4 warehouses, 2 fulfillment centers, and over 80 employees, many from companies previously labeled as outdated by MBA types like Tyler. This morning, Logan has been invited to deliver the keynote speech at the Western Wood Industry Expo in Portland, Oregon. Tyler Carter, after losing everything, he's now running a podcast on leadership lessons. Rumor has it he's borrowing money from his mother to stay afloat. Rachel Reed, now Redwood's head of HR, managing partnerships with 20-plus companies requesting collaboration. Jimmy Holbrook, now the COO, who still drives deliveries himself when staff is short. The media begins to label Logan as the man rebuilding the West's lumber industry. Some investors and politicians invite him to advisory boards. One even suggests he run for city council. Rachel and Elena propose naming the company headquarters Logan Reed Hall. But Logan hesitates. "I didn't build this company to brand it with my name. I built it so people could believe there's still a place where promises matter." At the Portland Expo, Logan only spoke for 10 minutes, but the room was silent throughout. "I don't want any of you to become who I was 3 years ago, sitting in a dark garage, reopening old contracts, wondering if you were wrong to trust people. You weren't wrong. You just have to keep that belief alive, even when everything else walks away." After his speech, small business owners lined up, not to pitch contracts, but to simply say thank you. That night, Logan received an unexpected email from Tyler. "I watched your speech. I won't pretend to apologize. I've lost the right. But if you ever thought I didn't regret it, you'd be wrong. I lost the company, my name, even relationships. But you have it all, and you still have something I never did: the trust of others." Logan read the email 3 times. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. This victory didn't require acknowledgement. A week later, Logan and Rachel visited the new Utah warehouse. On the wall, the team had mounted a carved wooden sign. Redwood isn't a company, it's a promise kept on time. There was no mention of Logan's name. There didn't need to be. Everyone there knew who laid the first brick. On the ride back, Rachel asked, "Do you finally feel successful now?" Logan smiled. "I never wanted success. I just didn't want to be forgotten. Not by name, but by how I did the work." One winter afternoon, Logan stood outside the original warehouse in Spokane, where it all began. Trucks rolled out carrying each plank, each invoice, each promise. He wrote a few lines in his journal. No one takes a company with them, but if done right, the company lives on, in every person it touched. Logan turned away without looking back. On the door was a new, simple slogan: Redwood, for those who still believe. Nothing more needed. True legacy doesn't need signage. It just needs to be etched in memory.